Something interesting has happened over the last 2 weeks. We're just coming out of the Easter recess, and we expected the national story to be massive anger around healthcare reform. And yes, there was undoubtedly some tensions, et cetera, et cetera. But what did happen is that across the country, there were public events and meetings and gatherings in churches, businesses, et cetera, calling for comprehensive immigration reform. In fact, just over this past weekend, I was in Las Vegas with Senator Reid. There were 6,000 people there saying, Senator Reid, we want comprehensive immigration reform. We want it now. Senator Durbin, Senator Gregg from New Hampshire, a Republican from New Hampshire, said in a town hall 2 weeks ago, now is the time for immigration reform. So the fact is, the country wants to see a solution, and in the most unlikely of places, Iowa, Montana, Texas. These are places that you would not think of as being supportive of immigration reform, but there's something happening out there, and there's this incredible drumbeat and a broad spectrum of support for immigration reform.
Juan Carlos, for members of Congress who are wavering, will business make its voice heard? Agriculture and food processing, construction and light assembly, the industries that really rely heavily on immigrant labor.
Well, the economy needs immigrant labor. We run this study at the Cato Institute early last year, and we run several models, economic models, and we found that if a plan similar to the one explained by Alfonso, with legalization paths for immigrant and a guest worker program, will add to the economy around $180 billion a year in net benefits. So we're talking here about a stimulus package for the economy if we passed immigration reform. So it's certainly in the benefit of the business community to push for and get behind the president and those in Congress who support this measure. One of the good things about what's going on is that the Hispanic community has learned to be assertive on this issue. It's not waiting quietly until President Obama finally makes his mind about this issue. They're pushing for it, they're talking, they're rallying, and this is good for immigration reform. And also the Hispanic community should let the president and the Democrats in the House and the Senate know that their votes are not to be given for granted, because then they can just wait in the silence, and take for granted these votes of the Hispanic voters for the next election, which will be a shame.
When I hear people who are against a path to legalization debate this issue, they'll often come around to this slogan or saying, refrán, what part of illegal don't you understand? And I think of necessity, the Senate and House versions include some form of punishment, fine, back taxes, in effect asking the person to say, yes, I did something wrong, but I still want to become a citizen. How do you balance that so that it doesn't become so difficult that people can't do it, but not so easy that in effect you're saying to America, well, we came and we didn't do anything wrong? Does there have to be a balance there?
You're absolutely right. You keep hearing this word amnesty. When nobody's proposing amnesty, nobody's for amnesty. What we're talking about is a legalization with a penalty. So people will have to come forward and say they have done something wrong. They would have to pay a penalty, perhaps pay back taxes, and they would go to the back of the line. But I think that we have to understand that what we're proposing is totally consistent with the rule of law. The punishment, if you will, or the penalty has to be proportional to the offense. In this case, crossing illegally or overstaying your visa is not a crime. It's a legal violation, and I think that if they pay a penalty, and if you have a penalty of $2,000 for most undocumented immigrants, that's
it might as well be $2 million.
That's a lot of money.
Yeah.
So the fact of the matter is that this proposal is totally consistent with the rule of law as understood by our Constitution and as understood by common law.